this is the Experience Podcast. It's just me again this week. This is part 3 of our commentary for episode number 36, Education Rant. It's Peter's third episode. I will echo what I said in the first 2 parts of this. I thought it was Peter's first episode, and I got big fat egg on my face, and it's expensive. Eggs are still expensive right now, so you know it's a big deal that I have egg on my face. So we're going to keep going here. I think I finally fixed the audio issues with these OBS recordings, but it is just, I don't know why it does it, but OBS is really, I mean, it's so easy to use, but like for some reason, sometimes the audio is a little weird. But that's how I do these sort of commentaries, because it easily captures my microphone and the desktop audio, which is the podcast that I'm listening to. So. All right, we're going to get back into it. This is part 3. We're talking about, what are we talking about? Oh, walking. We're talking about walking around, getting your steps in. So, yeah, here we go. It's deceivingly. I'm sorry, we're pausing here immediately. I forgot to say, we're right around the 32-minute mark, 32 and 40 seconds. So, that's where we are. Okay, back into it.
Hilly?
7 miles of walking a day, that's like 3.5 hours. 20 minute.
Is it 20 minute
mile?
You could probably do 15-minute mile.
I probably walk faster.
You could do 10 to 15.
I'm just trying to think of how much time I waste walking.
You waste a lot of time walking.
I waste a lot of time. I think a lot of people waste a lot of time. Just in general, there's a lot of time in the day.
Everyone has 24 hours in a day.
Having a job,
how you use it.
There's significantly less time in the day than
But how often do you work?
Every day I get in around 7:45 or 8. I get out around 5.
Around 8 to 5, okay? So that's 9 hours?
Mm-hmm. Plus an hour and a half total of commuting. And then just because everybody's...
we're not counting the commuting. I'm saying at your 8 to 5 job.
Yeah.
Are you working 9 hours steadily the entire time?
Depends on the week. For these past 2 weeks and for the next 3, I will be, yes.
Like the whole 9 hours, you have something to do.
Yeah, that's how Friday was. It was insane.
Because a lot of jobs, that's not true.
No, in most jobs. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because working 9 hours straight is insane.
Yes.
My brain was fried yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why you see different work schedules now where, you work from home and Fridays off, 4-day weeks and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think...
Pausing here, this was when we were all naive in 2019, and we thought flexible work schedules were the new thing, and they were for several years until now. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess I won't get too much into that, but, yeah, I don't know. In my opinion, it's like, well, never mind. Anyway, let's get back into it here.
I think the 4-day week schedule, for schools too, I think you'd be able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone with that. So students tend to get burnt out over the 5 days. Mm-hmm. So Fridays are throwaway days almost, and then students lose a lot of information over the summer.
Yeah. So you want to get rid of the summer.
So get rid of summer. Make it a break more like winter break,
which have no reason right now. Summers don't.
Because the farmers don't need their children back.
It wasn't about farming. That was not why we got rid of it.
Is that another freaking urban legend?
Yeah.
I hate those.
It's actually because it's all about rich people. As you know.
School funding. It's expensive to keep the schools going.
Basically, kind of, but also like the rich people didn't want their kids. In the summer, it's really hot in the school.
Yeah.
There's no air conditioning in 1798 or whatever. So they just took them out, and so none of the kids went to school in the summer just because people didn't want to go.
That's fair.
So that's why.
That's understandable.
But nowadays, now that we have
air conditioning,
the pausing here, I'm pretty sure I was right. I'm pretty sure I was. I think I read that recently, where like the reason schools shut down in the summer was historically they didn't have air conditioning, so it was too hot to keep the kids in school, and I guess they wanted them. It was probably also because they wanted them to work in farms. I know that's like a big thing that people think is like, it's so they can work on the farm, but like I think it was mostly because I don't remember where I read that, but it was that that they didn't have air conditioning to keep the kids in school. So okay, but let's get back into it.
The cost actually would be insane, though, to keep the schools running.
Yes, that too. I mean, yeah, there's probably multiple factors. Maybe farming was part of the factor,
But it would really increase.
but
our
a
schools
lot of
are
those
failing.
a lot of those farmers,
I'm gonna be honest.
a lot of people that were farming didn't go to school.
No,
you're
right,
a farmer,
right.
so it doesn't really make too much sense that they
No.
would be. They don't care.
And so there's that. It's probably cost prohibitive mostly, but at the same time, like
It's
our schools are
traditional at
failing
this
right
point.
now.
It's traditional. For school in the summer.
And a lot of people will probably complain, like, what about our summer vacations? I mean, you can still, you have a month off
Yeah.
in the winter, or like 3
You
weeks off. You can get a vacation.
You could take a month in the summer.
Yeah.
Make it a
So
month.
I think it would be a phenomenal thing for schools to start doing. Just because it is absurd. Even smart kids that are good at school.
You still lose like 60%,
Still lose.
70%.
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know the official
It's
percent,
something
so I'm not going to
between
try to
there.
guess out there.
It's
Just because
something-
it's so hard to quantify what you learned and what you didn't. Because so much
Yeah.
of what you learned in schools is about thinking through
It's
and your thought
qualitative as
processes,
opposed to quantitative.
right?
You don't.
And our over focus on what's somebody was saying, like, we focus in schools about what's easy to capture versus what's actually usable. And that's something people talk about all the time, but like it's much easier to know, to be able to figure out whether someone is able to find the noun in the sentence versus their ability to make a coherent argument with a sentence, which is, what language is for. Maybe not argument is the best word, but to convey an idea
Whatever
with a
it is,
sentence.
yeah.
Their ability to convey an idea with a sentence is a lot harder to quantify, but a lot more important than their ability to find out a noun and a gerund in a sentence. But that's pretty easy to, underline the noun. Boom.
Yeah, you can test that.
And God, I hate saying that because it sounds like one of those like cliche, like, oh, tests are so stupid. Like, why are we even in school? We're learning a bunch of, teach me how to file my taxes or whatever. That argument I actually do have stuff against. You teach someone how to file their taxes in 11th grade, they're going to forget in 2 years easily.
They're gonna forget the next day.
The tax system is going.
They're going to forget after the test.
Right. They're going to forget after the test.
After the test.
And so there's been this huge push towards like project-based learning that I really like. So instead of a physics class being sectioned off into like electromagnetism, and which are, I don't want to say arbitrary designations within physics, but they're kind of arbitrary. Even the designations between the sciences are kind of arbitrary. They start to blend really quickly.
Yeah.
Like when you start talking about physics at the subatomic level, when does that become chemistry? And we spend a lot of time into defining things, so they don't break down very easily. But a project-based learning might be the class decides to figure out how a roller coaster works. And so it goes into a bit of dynamics, a bit of tension, material sciences with the roller coaster, and it feels a lot more useful to the kids because they're learning how something works.
But a lot of them don't like projects, and it's because they feel like it's a distraction from the test they have coming up next week.
Pausing here. These are interesting things. I think schools are experimenting more with this more like project-based learning versus tests. Although tests still are like the reason we still have tests. I mean, there's a lot of inertia in it, obviously, but a large reason why we still have tests is just it's still a great way to measure knowledge of students. That's just why. I mean, you see, and it's also kind of an equalizer, like especially like when applying to colleges, standardized tests are a bit of an equalizer. So, yeah, that's just, I don't know. Yeah, we'll get back into it.
That's something I feel like we find more at Tech.
Yeah, but still.
I had a teacher that did project-based learning for his English and computer science classes. And it was different, but I'd say it turned out really well. You do need different classroom energy, though, for sure. Education is so complicated. Somebody once pointed out that it's like the biggest group achievement humans have ever earned is educating every child to 18.
Yeah.
And I realized, it is kind of an absurd amount of work that it takes.
We all agreed this is what we need to do.
Yeah. Like we somehow were just like, let's educate the kids, let's do it. And now a majority of every state's funds goes to educating kids. and a majority of the federal government's non-defense choosable spending is to the states. It's like transfer payments to the states.
Yeah.
And we should be doing it right. if we spend so much time and effort educating everybody, maybe we shouldn't be doing useless education.
I guess so. Yeah.
But yeah, it gets really, really complicated. I don't mean to make it sound like there's an easy fix.
There isn't.
Clearly, if there was,
we fixed a lot of it, obviously.
And we
over
have.
time.
We've done. Yeah, we're no longer teaching about Columbus. Solely about Columbus. Like, I think history has made leaps and bounds.
Mm-hmm.
At least the history classes I took focused on these overarching patterns.
Because we learn something new about each thing each day.
Yeah,
right.
And so it was really nice for that versus my parents.
And obviously, calculus changed a lot in was the 1800s, mid to late 1800s. Calculus is one of the newer maths.
It is.
We've had algebra and geometry for since the Greeks, basically.
And I remember in the calculus class I took, there were a lot of problems, and these were where I'd actually probably understand, and this is somewhat on how I learn, but where I understood the calculus the most was when we had to apply it to physics problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be like these dynamic rate of change problems where you have a funnel that waters, the traditional volume calculus problem where you have a funnel that water is pouring out of into a bucket. How is the rate and the height of the water level in the cone affecting the rate?
Yeah, and you can model that based on over time.
And so that was those were the things where I sort of realized, like, oh, wow.
Pausing here, I'm fact-checking myself. So calculus was sort of developed, modern calculus, I guess, was developed in the 17th century by Isaac Newton and Leibniz. So yeah. Calculus is fairly new, although the Greeks, I guess the Egyptians, it depends on what you count as like calculus, right? Because the Egyptians were doing like calculations of area and things like that, and there were a lot of like and even the ancient Greeks and Chinese sort of mathematicians were looking at that, but really modern calculus was kind of started by Newton largely, or at least he at least made it famous, right? So okay, let's keep going.
This is why I'm learning that this is what's great, but a lot of students don't get to that point in math.
Mm-hmm. Or they don't care.
But you don't care because you don't, for some reason you and I cared just about the math for the sake of math. Like the reason we got to calculus is because in elementary school, we were just like, oh, these numbers are kind of fun, or it came easy to us. And it wasn't until we got to the usefulness of math,
mm-hmm.
which comes in these later math classes, in the statistics and the calculus and the geometry, that we were like, oh shoot, this stuff is fun and usable too.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of kids, when you stop at pre-calc, you're like, why the hell did I learn about sine, cosine, and theta?
And you're also wondering, why do I need to learn about it?
And why do I need
My
to
sister tells me that. She's like,
Yeah.
why do I need calculus? She wants to go into psychology.
Yeah, and so she would be a lot better at taking statistics.
Mm-hmm. Which she is. I think she's taking
Okay, good.
Or,
And you're...
Pausing here, she did not end up going into psychology. She went into business. So I don't know. I guess just because people change their mind, maybe it's a good idea to have a good breadth of knowledge. But yeah, to some extent, I don't know. Specifically, calculus wouldn't have helped her. But yeah, okay, let's keep going.
You're going to be finding use of it. And even at Tech, a lot of the public policy kids are like, why do I need to learn statistics? And the statistics professor is like, because this is a data-based science.
If you have any number in any place ever, you need...
Because humans are not predictable, and when there's slight randomness, you need statistics.
It's also about how do you report your findings, not just about how do you analyze it, but how are you going to show whoever you're lobbying, let's say, for example, why schools should be run over the summer.
And there's a rhetorical part of statistics that my statistics professor, Scott Gans, great guy, Professor Gans, legitimately phenomenal professor. He would focus a lot on the numbers that you find through statistics is not where your job starts. It's actually stops. It's really where it starts. As a less objective major, and I'm sure there are corollaries in engineering where it's like, cool, the math is all fine and dandy. It's how you apply certain equations.
Thanks for explaining why the numbers that you got are important.
Bingo, yeah.
Which is exactly what it is. Yeah.
And so that's... But if you don't have a good teacher, whoever teaches you that, you're just like, all right, cool, I can find out the mean of a large set. What do I do with it? Yeah. And it really gets me riled up. My mom's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, my dad eventually wants to become a teacher. I see a lot of students, including my little sister, who have been neglected by the school system, really, just because they don't have this very nerdy interest in just learning things for the sake of learning things. Like, we got lucky to just enjoy learning for the sake of learning.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm speaking broadly about you and I is because I assume you got good grades in school.
Well,
Daniel, you got good grades in school. And you did well on the SAT. And you have to at least not actively hate your schoolwork in order to spend that much time with it.
Yeah.
And you might have learned to resent it. But at some point now, like...
Pausing here, for the record, I did fine on the SAT. I did much better on the ACT, so that is what I submitted to the school. Just straightening out the record for posterity's sake. We are 5 minutes out from this episode, and we did not touch on climate change. So I don't know why I put that in the description. Sorry, I'm distracted now. There's some kind of, I don't know if you can hear it on the podcast. There's some kind of knocking going on. I think they're doing like some renovations in the apartment above me. So great time to do the podcast. But okay, we're 5 minutes out. We're gonna keep going.
Like in elementary school, I would read constantly. I would like be that kid that walked in the hallway with his nose in a book.
And you read while you run too.
I do. Yeah, there's something about me. I'm never able to just do one thing at once. So, after I've gone on that education rant,
yeah,
it pisses me. It makes me sad. It really does, because this isn't just like a theoretical policy thing. This is like students that legitimately think the first, the 12 years of their life that they are spending in school is useless. And like that kind of sucks to live with.
Yeah.
Because then you feel like you're being forced to do useless stuff by parents. You have distrust of the authority figures telling you what to do. Because you're just like, why are these people telling me to do something that's useless? Huh. But it's fine, it's sad. What time are we at?
Are we done here? Do you want to end?
Sure.
You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I mean, this was solely on education.
You got something else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just sad. This will happen when I talk about climate change, too.
Oh, go ahead. Climate change.
No, I'm really
We're already doing it. We're rolling it in.
No. It's just...
I go ahead.
We screwed the pooch on climate change. We should have listened to the scientists in the 70s when it was like a fixable problem.
Oh, we're in so deep. I've talked to people who have talked to people, let's say.
Yeah.
I won't say any names, but I have contacts that are energy.
Yeah, you're really into that.
And they, a lot of the top minds in the country are very pessimistic.
The only way out is forward, I think. We have to start controlling the climate in the opposite direction.
The problem is, we already have too much carbon in the air.
Yeah. We hit like 440 parts per million in junior year.
Even if we switch everything over right now and we stop putting carbon in the air, we already have too much.
Yeah,
it's already too late.
And the thing is, people talk about it in such these like vague future terms. And sorry,
I'm pausing here. We have 3 minutes left in the podcast, but I do want to point out this was pre-COVID, and COVID really changed the math on climate change. When you had like such a reduction in emissions for months across the world, that really changed the game. But I don't know, your miles may vary for how much you're interested in climate change, but we'll keep going.
I had to tell y'all the future is here. Like Georgia's peach crop in 2016, half of it died because of the climate. You know, we had a nice sunny 2 weeks in the middle of winter, and then we had a freeze for the next 3 weeks. And so the peach crop died because the trees don't know what time it is. They just are like, it's warm, I'm going to bring my flowers out. So I'm going to focus on the hopeful side of this, which is that people like Daniel Silverstein are going to be focusing on renewable energies and, more importantly, climate manipulation technologies that can start taking carbon out of the air and reversing the shit. Isn't there something like a big pile of trash in the Pacific Ocean that's like larger than...
trash is the least of our worries.
I know, like that's not even the carbon one.
The carbon is the bigger issue. Trash is a problem too because of methane and other issues. Methane is much worse than CO2, as I'm sure you know. Like cows are an issue.
Cows are an issue.
Like, stop eating beef because...
And you know what? It's not, listener, it's not your fault unless you own one of the, like, because it's like 75% of the emissions has come from the top 100 companies. I'm not sure where that, you know, if that is using oil companies and like every ounce of oil they bring out is counted for a certain amount, then I don't think that's an accurate statement. But like, U.S. Defense Department is one of the biggest emitters.
Yeah.
Tanks are fucking...
Yeah.
So now I'm really sad.
All right. Well,
humans, on a happy note, we'll end here.
Yeah, sure. Go.
Humans are adaptable. We're intelligent. We've probably never been through something this crappy, like worldwide as an event. But we're getting to a post-scarcity future. We always deal with problems. We haven't failed yet. We haven't died as a species yet. So let's keep going forward.
All right, that's the podcast. Make sure you, of course, support the podcast, Peter. I'm sure you'll donate.
I might.
It's 99 cents a month. It's like nothing.
Yes. You know what? Daniel guilted me into this.
I guilted you. So that's where we'll end. Yeah, be sure to find it on anchor.fm/the experience with a dash in the middle of the dash experience. We'll have an episode out next week. Hopefully Connor will be back next week, and we'll talk about some goofy stuff again. It's just one of the more serious ones. But that's fine. We like to wear different hats. Anyway, that's it. Goodbye.
Well, there you have it. That's the podcast. And yeah, it's episode number 36, Education Rant. Thank you guys for listening to this one. This is part 3 of the commentary. If you didn't listen to the first 2 parts, I don't know how you ended up. Well, you know what? I say that, but on the previous commentaries we've done, we get sometimes some of them we get more listens, like progressively. Like more people are listening to the third one than the second and first one. I'm like, what is going on? Why would you start with part 3? I feel like I labeled them pretty clearly that it's part 3. But you know what? You do you. It doesn't really matter to me. If you like, if for some reason some people like the third part. But anyway, yeah, that's the podcast. That's episode, I guess that's episode 36. Not Peter's first episode. It's his third one. We'll be back hopefully next week with some new episodes. I had one planned. Full disclosure, I had one planned for when the first episode, for the first part of this commentary came out, but it kind of fell through. For you know, not their fault. It was kind of outside circumstances, unfortunate circumstances, I would say. And so, yeah, I'm sympathetic to that. So, but yeah, anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.